Great. Thank you, everyone. So I want to pass it back to Jen, and we're going to dive into our training for today.
Thanks so much, Jenny. We just wanted to quickly go over some of the norms that we will have for this meeting. One thing that we did want to share with everyone, if you can please mute your audio when not speaking. That way it eliminates any background noise for our speakers, panelists, and of course attendees. Make sure engage into the chat as much as possible. Like I said earlier, you can type any of your questions, comments right there in the chat, and we will ensure to get back to you or respond to that question. And you want to make sure you share what you learn. So we hope that you learn tools that you can apply in your work and continue to share what you learn with others in your specific communities, in your specific roles. So we want to make sure that you are able to share today's webinar by tagging us and using our hashtags. We have hashtag engage for change, which will be dropped in the chat, and also hashtag CalSAC times innovate. We will also be recording this session, and we'll make sure that we'll share the session with all of our attendees. So if there's something that you're like, I really want to share this with my coworkers, our partners, no need to worry. We'll make sure that you have all the information you need after the webinar is over. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Jenny to talk about some of our goals.
So you are all here today because you understand the importance of engaging parents and recognize that being intentional about bringing parents along can actually help youth serving programs be more successful. As community organizers and after-school providers, we are all committed to equity and justice for youth of color. That is what drives our work. So today we aim to discuss how we can all work better together and alongside families to achieve that mission. So there are three primary goals for our webinar today. The first is to hear best practices directly from after-school providers and parents. The second is to share our organizing model with you all as a tool for parent engagement, to connect with your families and build out an organized community ready for action. The third is to discuss and brainstorm tangible ways you can incorporate this model into your parent engagement. Next slide, please. So why is this important? Why is parent engagement important? There are so many reasons why this work is important, as you all know, but I will share just two very critical reasons. First, we know parents are engaged in their children. We know that when parents are engaged in their children's education, students do better in school. Decades of research underscores the importance of parent engagement in education and shows that increased parent engagement leads to improved student outcomes. Second, students need support from everyone to recover from this pandemic. Recent data out from the National Assessment of Educational Progress, NAEP, shows that 2 decades of growth for American students in English and math were wiped away after 2 years of disrupted learning during the pandemic. And declines were steepest for students of color. Now, it is more important than ever for schools, community-based organizations, and parents to join forces to help students recover. I'll pass it over to Slide now, who will introduce our panel for today and will lead our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm really excited to introduce you to an amazing set of panelists who are going to share some really incredible insights into parent engagement. Before we do that, I want to make sure I introduce Ms. Mariana Casares, who's going to share a testimonial. Ms. Casares is a community leader and a mother of 2 children in kindergarten and 2nd grade in San Jose.
Hello, everyone. I can share with you all. My name is Mariana. My first language is Spanish. I'm originally from Mexico, and I am a mom of 2 small children in 2nd grade and kindergarten, both as English learners. I'm a leader in 2 community-based organizations advocating for food access and food justice, as well as for students to have access to high-quality programs in their public schools and after-school programs. I'm doing this work with nonprofit organizations such as Sacred Heart, Community Services, School, Vegilution, La Mesa Verde, Innovate Public Schools, and Alpha Public Schools. I just recently accepted a job offer to start a community outreach work with the nonprofit organization Fresh Approach, which focuses on food access and food justice. Advocating for our kids needs to be a constant and continuous effort. Public school districts and boards operate with a different set of priorities to those shared by parents, and they often can't and won't understand what our daily struggles are with our kids' education. For instance, the pandemic forced my older child to start the kindergarten education online. Many Latino parents were gathering to have conversations on how these situations were affecting, and they were also experiencing learning loss. These Latino parents weren't willing to accept their children's situation. Parents took action with Innovate Public Schools guidance and together worked with decision makers and elected officials. They made their voices heard and asked to allocate a budget to high quality after school programs to cover lost ground after the pandemic and reduce learning loss. Schools, as well as nonprofits, such as Boys and Girls Club, San Jose Public Libraries, and others step up to provide programs and spaces for low-income community access. Parent engagement in their children's education opens doors for schools to understand the needs in their communities. When schools welcome parents' engagement in decision-making for the growth of the school, they win the parents' support because they are making their communities stronger, and parents feel they are part of the team in improving their children's development. This is especially powerful when these communities are a majority of low-income parents that feel underserved and at a disadvantage in an education system that depends on political decision makers. Students, educators, and schools all benefit from parent engagement, especially when the school is transparent in decision-making and involves parents. It makes this joint work a lot more collaborative and open. Unfortunately, politics plays a huge role in public schools decision-making, and parents must be tuned into the policy beat of the moment. This is where organizations like Innovate Public Schools can help guide and train parent groups around local and state policy efforts. Furthermore, we are living in political times that are hyper-polarized around local and state policy efforts. I'm sorry. Furthermore, we are living in political times that are hyper-polarized with a win at all cost mentality. In spite of this, parent leaders have already had open conversations with elected officials in the Senate and decision makers in the Education Department of the state of California. Indeed, parent leaders have already experienced and demonstrated that their engagement brings power to communities and schools. In addition to school participation, part of being an engaged parents is learning where the decisions are made and to bring their voices where it will make a bigger impact. Thank you all for being a part of this space where organizations and parents can come together to find ways to better engage parents and families in your programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Casares. We're going to be inviting now our panelists to join us. We'll be pasting their bios in the chat shortly so you can get a sense of their background and what kind of work they've been doing. I'm going to kick it off with a few questions, and then we're going to turn it over to the audience to type, a few questions in the chat, and we'll get to some of your questions as well. We don't have time for everyone to have their questions answered, but we'll certainly follow up with you for that. And then if you Venmo me directly, like $20, I'll make sure your question gets answered. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so when I was looking at all the people who registered for the panel today, the number one question in all the registered participants' minds was, how can we increase parental participation, parental involvement? There's a lot of reasons why that doesn't always happen. So I'm really curious to hear more about what works and what doesn't work when it comes to increasing parental engagement. I'd like to first ask Ms. Sandy Vides to share your thoughts on that.
Hola, buenas tardes. Hi, my name is Sandy Vides. I'm with the Seed School of LA County. I'm currently the Director of Family and Community Engagement. First of all, thanks everyone, and your story is really inspiring to our parent that just spoke right now. So what can you repeat your question, slide?
Yes, when it comes to increasing parental participation and parental involvement, what are some things that work to increase that and best practices that you can share?
Great question. I like to highlight something very important that in my bio, if you read it, I've been working in education for about 15 years now. And if you had asked me this question when I was just starting parent engagement, it would have looked different than now that I am a part of the senior leadership team at our school, because now I have to look at parent engagement from different lens. And so in thinking about our audience today, I really have to acknowledge that everyone's on different positions, right? I like to start off with saying what works is thinking about who your audience as parents are. I'll give you an example. I've always worked with mostly first generation, low income, under resource communities. And so for me, I have to have been creative around one of the pieces that has worked is being creative in language, right? So increasing parent engagement means, how am I gonna speak to my audience, to our parents? Because if they don't understand what I'm saying, then they're not gonna be coming to the events that I'll be hosting, right? So it's very important to get to know your parents. And then from getting to know them, it's really identifying how you're gonna support them. So one of the pieces I've done in the past is translate all documents, translate all presentations, deliver the presentation similar to today, right? Create different forms of platforms so that your audience can engage with you. Because if you are talking to 200 parents in one language, you're gonna easily have at least 125 maybe that don't understand, which means that you're not delivering those resources that you want to deliver to your family. So I want you, depending on who you are in your role, is to be intentional. Be intentional about your groups, right? Now that I'm on the senior leadership team for our school, I have to not just think of the group of parents, but really think of how my delivery is going to impact the whole campus, not just students, staff, board of directors, any CBOs, right? So be creative with how you're delivering your information to our really important families.
Thank you.
If I could add to that, I said first you want the parents to know that you want them engaged. I think that's a big part, because it's easy for parents to feel like, oh, those are my students, my kids are in school. But for us, we need to persuade them so we can really show them our story and the impact that we're having. So first is, I don't know how you want to send out different communication. And you all as leaders know your different communities, what's the best way to get this initial message out. But definitely letting the parents know that you want them engaged. And that's a marketing thing. That's all year long, is whenever you see parents communicating with them. And part of that intentionality behind it is while parents can be an additional lens on campus, and it can be a challenge sometimes, putting a parent and having a system in place so that parent can contribute and further support the work that we're doing is huge. I mean, it's an opportunity for our parents to also become our storytellers. They become our social media, and they get to tell different stories. I mean, when you look up in different sports, parents, go and, oh, I got to see my kid play, and they're all cheering and everything. We need to give our parents that opportunity to be our students' cheerleaders, just as they are with sports. We give them the opportunity for our parents to see their kids in action, so they can be proud of their kids, not just what's happening during the instructional day. I mean, imagine if there's a student that isn't doing, extraordinarily well during the instructional day, but after school, they're learning and accelerating. I mean, that could really change that kid's life because their parent got to actually give them praise and kudos because they came after school and got to see them. Also putting systems in place for engagement. So you all can decide maybe a parent advisory or even a simple calendar that goes out throughout the year, or maybe a monthly reminder saying, hey, these are the different events we want you to come and what the expectations are for a parent to come, some standard operating procedures in terms of what their participation should look like. So a map of events with expectations, and also internally with your teams, it's important to set accountability goals for parent participation. And maybe even sending off a note to your parents saying, hey, we want you involved. If you can show up, can you commit to showing up to a single event 5 times a year? Something as simple as that can start to cultivate that environment and really connecting what's happening with the after school with the parent and the parent community. But we also have to be realistic because a lot of the parents can't just show up all the time. So it's really initially creating that culture and develop different mechanisms that work for your school or for your school district that can be inviting to parents, and just have different goals and keep taking them to the next level when you're planning for the year.
Thank you. So switching gears a little bit, Ms. Casares, in your testimonial, you talked about how we're living in a really hyper-partisan era. There's a lot of division. Sometimes there's misinformation that contributes to that. What are some things we can do when we're working with parent communities where there are significant cultural, political, or maybe even religious differences, not just between, those exist not just between the parents and their children, but sometimes between parents and staff in the program? How can we begin to establish trust and do some relationship building when we have parents where there's gaps like that?
Yes, thank you. I want to share an example. At the school my daughter attends, they make an intentional effort to make the Latino community feel welcome and celebrated. For example, they host holiday events and gatherings like Cinco de Mayo, Dia de los Muertos, and they don't stop there. In the lunch program, they include cultural foods in what they offer, like tamales. So that the students also feel celebrated. The Latino community feels a sense of belonging when the school opens up spaces to celebrate our identities.
Thank you. Ms. Campos, can you briefly also share your experience? I know you work with immigrant communities that are recent arrivals to the United States. Can you briefly tell us what are ways that you've been able to establish trust with these families?
I talk to them. I tell them if they need anything as like food, clothes, diapers, formula, anything that they need, come to us, trust us. We can do as much as we can for them and try to find ways where we can help them get the help they need, or like status of immigration. We're supposed to have a meeting soon coming up with Latino Task Force next month, to see if they need to get like jobs, help, housing, other stuff that they need. Our community is based on more immigrants that just came in from their countries, and they're looking for like things. I know some students are really hungry. They live in trailer parks, and we give them hygiene, like toothpaste, toothbrushes, soap, shampoo, things that they need. We try to provide that stuff, and if they need it, we look for it for them. So that's what makes it basically more what they're struggling in. And they're scared too because they don't want to come to us because they think, oh, they might, call us because they might call immigration. I tell them, don't be scared. Come. If you need help for Medi-Cal, you need help for food stamps, things like that you need for your kids, we're here for them anytime. And we try to look for it for them.
Thank you. I know before COVID, a lot of us never imagined that we would be utilizing and relying on virtual tools so much, especially for things like parent engagement. Anderson, I'm curious to hear from you. How do you envision parent engagement looking like in the next few years? Where do you see this evolving as we continue to grapple with the pandemic, but also all the other issues that have resulted?
I'm glad you called him. I was going to say, I'll take that. So as we move forward, our parents, it's us positioning them to really have their voice heard, and us empowering our parents to be leaders in their schools, in their communities, statewide, and really, being a level of a powerhouse where it's being able to not only get what you need for your students or your community, but together, when we have that common vision, common voice, a lot of our parents are voters, and whether or not they're voting or not, they still can move mountains with their feet and with their voices. So moving forward, I see our parents to be in a position to be a parent advisory where we can really teach parent and empowerment, where they can really be pillars of their community, which can help them, not just get what they need, but what they want. And we're uniquely positioned to support them to do that. And I'm really excited because it really turns into our parents being, again, a powerhouse when we bring them together. So I think before, it's wanting the parents to be on campus and be engaged and be connected with the students as much as possible, which is paramount moving forward. As you mentioned, the academic studies and the positive impacts that happen when their parents show up on campus at some point, be it instruction day or after school. But I mean, moving forward, us positioning our parents and teaching them how they can be powerful and leaders. I mean, it's here at LA's Best, we have about 200 schools. So, I mean, it's something as simple as having two parents at each school that say, yeah, this year I'm going to be one of the parents that's going to be on the parent advisory. I mean, even on a single tweet, if a tweet goes out and every two parents at every school, that's 400 parents that are going to click like on something. We could post something with an elected official or a ballot measure that we want and click like on that, or what so have you. So that's just a metaphor to what things could look like. But I see a huge opportunity for our parents to be more pillars of the communities that we serve.
Thank you. I have one last question I want to ask all of our panelists before we turn it over to audience questions. What's something about parent engagement that I haven't asked you that I should have? So take a few seconds to reflect on that. And in 60 seconds or less, what's the takeaway that you want people to walk away from today? What's that one thing I should have asked you that I didn't? We'll start with Cindy.
I love to share that you need to have the magic sauce, right? Like there has to be some magic to your recipe, right? And to me, the way that I've really engaged our families is to get to know their individual stories, being flexible, and also showing them cariño, right? Showing them you care. Señora María Ana, usted sabe, si uno no le enseña cariño a las familias, no, para mí eso ha sido muy importante. And that's been something magical for me because my families know that I am flexible even at 9 p.m. at night, sometimes weekends. And so sometimes we talk about jobs being 8 to 5, but parent engagement, it's not 8 to 5. We know that our families, our parents, 24/7, right? And so for me, I see parent engagement as part of of who I am, even though I don't have kids, but I understand the struggles that our families go through. And I understand that I need to be flexible with their needs, and thinking about who they are, right? So I do want to highlight that you need to, if you don't know your families, you can't deliver what they need. So speak to them, get to know them, and prepare your teams. I would say for us leaders, like think about what kind of professional development you are having your staff do. Because what we've done here, for me, what I've done is train all of our school members. They need to be speaking the same language as I am speaking to all of our parents. And even if they don't speak Spanish, that's okay. You say hola, you still like in some type of way, right? You still engage our families. And so there's so many different ways that we need to, again, identify who we are so that we deliver quality work for our families that are really, really deserve this piece. Because similar to what Mr. Anderson say, once we give tools to our families, they will run with it. I've created parent boards, and they've helped me host monthly workshops, a series of workshops. For example, I've done college prep work. And so for the whole year, we did college prep workshops. For example, how to do the FAFSA, how do we support families do taxes, because we know that's something their seniors will need to apply to FAFSA, right? And so please be intentional and identify where your families are at. So each grade level, what they're gonna need, and how are you gonna deliver this piece? Who do you need on your team to be supportive? And also, again, include those families and listen to what they need.
Thank you. Ms. Campos, can you share with us 60 seconds or less? What is the takeaway for today?
I talk to all the parents, no matter what nationality. I do both languages, English and Spanish. I help Ms. K, translate because she don't understand. I tell her the way it is, and if the parents need help, I tell my parents, call me 24/7, anytime, any day, Monday through Sunday. Usually I get parents calling me, I need help with this. I also work with the class with students on Mondays and Wednesdays. So I help out also too with helping kids learn. And if the child needs help, I'm there for them. If they need therapy, we can try to look for it. Other stuff like, because we work with the autistic student. So it's rough working with an autistic student. We didn't know he was autistic until we found out, but it's rough. And I try to get help for my son because he's a behavioral technician. Like, give me pointers where I can learn, and that way it can help me do better. And in that way I can, come in, help out. And if a parent is struggling or whatever, we're always here. I tell them, I'm always here for you guys. If you need it, I'm here. And if we can't find it, we'll try to find a way to get it for you guys as best as we can.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Casares.
Yeah, I'm very happy to hear what Cindy and Christina just shared. Thank you very much. I'm very inspired right now. Thank you. I also wanted to share schools and after-school programs need to change their attitude towards parental involvement. Parents are not just recipients of rules and information in schools programs. I believe as partners in education, parents must be empowered and acknowledged as equal partners, and also as people with certain expertise and important skills. This means parents are acknowledged and celebrated when they get involved. And this also means you invest in parents' development through workshops and professional development. You have to get to know the parents and find their interests and strengths and invest in them as leaders. And when you are able to do that, to connect with parents in that other way, not just as they advocating for their children, but acknowledging that what they bring to the table is of big value, and you invest on those skills that they want to bring to advocate for their children's education. The community gets stronger, and you get a community that is an ally to the school or the after school program, and that is powerful.
Thank you.
That's what I mean.
Thank you. All right. Can you close out?
Sure. I'd say I mean, it's just, I don't want to say it's simple because it's not, but it is. So it's really creating a team, right? Organize folks, create a team, maybe even create a team name, and let that team of parents partner with the school and district leaders and identify some goals and needs and what leaders need to be present to achieve these goals. School needs, parent needs, community needs, and provide, different one-sheets and learning opportunities for parents to engage on social media, in person, or picking up the phone with leaders in their community. And if you really get to that point of just, this is really rolling out very well, then, think about incorporating and fundraising and getting some benefits of having a nonprofit entity in your community.
Thank you. Thank you to all our panelists for sharing some incredible insight into your experiences with family engagement. Now I'd like to open it up to questions from the audience. So if you can type something in the chat, and we'll get to as many questions as we can in the next few minutes. Looks like there's a question that came in regarding parent advisory. Some programs have started parent advisory type programs that are not always successful. Parents are not as interested in that. I'd like to hear from one of our panelists who maybe has had some experience creating parent advisors. What are some things to avoid, or what are some things you recommend doing to ensure their success?
I'll take it. The first part I'd say, identify that team name and what the parents are going to be. Create some goals and some non-negotiables where we say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to meet on certain days and what so have you. And really have a mission of being student-centered, being community-centered, because it's easy to be politically different, being on different sides of the aisle, or, economically maybe on different sides, or socially, just developmentally, just feeling different types of ways. But if we're always student-centered and planning out goals for that year that everyone agrees on, then I would recommend that that's a best practice for setting up a parent advisory, a parent team that is sustainable.
Thank you for that. Another question that came in: what are your thoughts on incentives in order to drive parent engagement? Is there a most effective way? Sometimes people raffle gift cards at parent events. What are other ways to incentivize parent engagement? Who can speak to that?
I saw definitely gift cards, right? One of the ways that the last parent meeting we had is we gave gift cards and we actually got them donated. So I know we think about budget, right? So how much money do you have? Do you have money? Or sometimes our budget is tight, right? So think about organizations or who you can ask for those incentives. We know right now the gas is super expensive. So one of the pieces we did is, again, the gift cards, gas gift cards, because we know our families need that. Another incentive we've had is lunch or dinner with our head of school. So we know that our families love those like one-on-one touches. Include that, right? Like who do they want to have lunch with? Ask them. I would also say another incentive is think about like a field trip where families are involved in. An incentive that I did is University Parent Day, where families came to a a campus and actually saw a college campus. So maybe your top 10% of parents that are involved or most involved can select like a field trip they want to go to together. And again, think about your budget and see how you can get creative and plan around that.
Thank you very much. Another question that came up is, and this, I also saw this in the registration event. How can we increase family engagement with parents or caretakers who work 2 or more jobs? So whether there's time constraints or just the energy isn't always there because people are exhausted from having to work so hard, what are some things that we can do to support those parents?
Think about when you're offering those events. A strategy I do is do evening and morning of the same event. An example is you could do during the week a Thursday evening. A lot of families are available Wednesday, Thursday evenings, but then also Saturday morning. Saturday is when those families that are working Monday through Friday are more flexible. And so this would be either in person or virtual. And I've also done more one-on-ones. Again, thinking about that flexibility for those parents that I know are working all the time and they just can't join a Zoom, let alone come in person. So I offer myself to do one-on-ones so that they're still receiving information that they need for to help their student be successful.
Thank you, Sandy. Does anybody else want to chime in on this one?
Yeah, I love that question because I think that's huge because a lot of parents feel like I can't be engaged because I work all these different jobs. I don't have time, but that's in the moment. So different ways that we can have parent engagement are for them to engage on social media. There's at any time they can engage there. And they may say, I don't have social media. Well, you can get it just so you can be engaged and see what's going on with your students at the school and what have you. And also for videotaping things and sending out that communication. I mean, there's systems in place where parents don't have to experience things live, see the things that their students are doing live. So I think finding different systems to communicate out and then giving them the opportunity to be attached to it and learn.
Thank you. We have time for just one question. The question is, how can we help or support technologically challenged guardians? Very diplomatic phrasing of the question.
I'll take that since it kind of piggies on what I was just saying. It's teaching them. I mean, giving a one sheet that says, hey, this is how you set up your email. This is how you set up your social media account. These are best practices on how to use social media. These are the social media of the district or leaders of that community for you to follow. So that is something that can be learned. So I think that will be a way of supporting technologically challenged parents. I think we need to make sure that that's the best way to say it before I keep saying it that way. But I think that's a good way. But it's also, let's find out, do parents even have phones? Do they have internet? Do they have the computer? So identifying what the needs are for parents is something that can be identified in the beginning. When the parent advisory comes together, it's not just I'm here to look at stuff. It's also a parent advisory to support each other. And again, to find out the needs, not just of the school, but also the needs of the parents and the needs of the community.
Thank you. Christina or Sandy, would you like to chime in?
Definitely agree.
Oh,
Go ahead.
like he said, my parents, some of them don't have internet. They don't have phones. Half of our parents don't know how to read. They don't know how to write. We have to help them out with filling out applications. The other one is their child is real behind in reading, writing, math. They're like very low in education wise here in my community. So we try to help them out as best as we can with all the things that they need.
I'd like to add from what was already said is I do student recruitment, and sometimes for our parents that are always working, right? I've offered to do office hours at their local community, like at Starbucks or a community office. Or I've also done home visits where we can, again, attend to their needs. I've gone to parents' jobs to help fill out an application during their lunchtime. And so being flexible with our parents, right? And thinking about what they need, and all these platforms, right? So we talked about social media, we talked about email, it could be a newsletter. Do those families require them to send them an actual, letter home? So again, identifying who those families are, or if there's a family that you have to make that phone call. So I identify those pieces to be able to deliver your information.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, that wraps up our panel for today. I really wish we could stay another hour chatting, because I know I've personally learned a lot from listening to you, and you've helped me identify blind spots that I have. I don't work directly with parents, and so listening to a lot of the needs that you've expressed, a lot of the things that we don't always consider when it comes to supporting parents, has been very insightful for me personally. So thank you for taking the time to chat. I know there are other questions probably in the chat, but also that were submitted on Eventbrite that we didn't get to. We're going to select a few frequently asked questions and then share them with our panelists so that we can follow up with you in writing. We'll send a follow-up email that'll include some of those questions as well as their insight. So we'll be in touch with everyone via email. But thank you again to our panelists. Let's give them a virtual hand, snaps. And I'm going to turn it over to Jenny.
Okay, guys, we are officially at a break. So we're going to take 5 minutes so you can get some water, use the bathroom, stretch your legs. We're going to come back. So right now we're calling it 10:50. If you can come back by 10:55, that'd be great. We'll see you soon.
Come here. Oh. with Squarespace, it was easy.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and start coming back here. We do hope that that break served you well and you were able to stretch your legs a little bit. We are really pumped and excited to move forward with Carlos, who will be going over Innovate's organizing model and how you can apply it within your communities and programs. So I'll go ahead and pass it to Carlos.
Thank you so much, Jen. And it is so wonderful to be here. I wanted to start out before I sort of introduce myself. How many, just use the heart icon. How many people are inspired after that panel? Is anybody inspired? Can you put a little heart? It's one of my favorite Zoom features. I overdo it. I overdo the heart on Zoom. I need to confess that. So I am excited to see that so many of you are excited about the panel, excited about continuing parent engagement and continuing to learn from each other. And I'm really excited to be here among so many incredible values-driven people. And I'm really inspired. And there was really two things that I heard in the panel. I heard a lot of wisdom, but two things that sort of stood out. There's parent engagement sort of in general, and the model that I'm about to present to you, the framework, can help with sort of engaging parents across the board in your communities, the hundreds, the thousands of parents that are in your communities, to really continue to have and develop sort of healthy parent engagement across the board. That's one thing, and Cindy in particular really spoke to that, right? Using food, helping people find services, speaking to information, having information sessions, etc. And then there's this other aspect of parent engagement that one of our sort of philosophies at Innovate is that and every community has leaders, potential leaders. Every community has potential leaders. And so there's this other aspect of parent engagement that I want to also talk about, which is how do you create, and this Anderson spoke to this a lot, how do you create a system for a small to medium-sized team of parents that you also form intentionally as leaders in your communities, and that you work with to accomplish great things for them and for you, for your organization and your goals. And so that's really the two aspects of parent engagement that I'm through which I'm thinking about this presentation, and that you can use our framework for. There's four things in our framework that I'm going to present to you. All of you are doing elements of these four things already, but I'm going to present sort of a framework that helps you take stock of how to have them play off each other. And so just to introduce myself, my name is Carlos Rodriguez. I'm a senior community organizer with Innovate Public Schools, focus on our statewide and Southeast LA work. I've been at Innovate for over 4 years, and I'm really passionate about what communities can do together when they organize. Recently, a team of parents that I organized, that I have the joy of organizing with, and I saw Eddie Tafoya, who's one of our great allies there from Southeast Community Foundation. Recently, this team of parents in Southeast LA won over $250,000 for free tutoring for their community's kids from Huntington Park and Southgate. Hi, Eddie. This is just one example of the power of the framework that I'm going to present to you today. There's many, many powerful things that I think this framework can be leveraged for. I will say this a few times in these next 15-ish minutes, and I already said this once, a lot of the principles and practices that I will talk to you about are already things that your organization is doing and practicing. So some more hearts. How many of you value listening as part of your work? How many of you value listening? Do I have any folks that love listening? Yeah, listening's pretty cool. And then how many of you value learning as part of your work? Keep your heart up if you value learning. Yes, learning is also important. And then what about action, like getting stuff done, like seeing, having a project plan and then having it happen, kind of like this webinar. We were just like we just put the idea out there and like now it's happening. Like how many of you value acting upon the world? Yeah. And what about my favorite, because I'm, really sentimental and I love, that kind of music and stuff. How many of you value reflection, like sitting down with like a glass of wine or a cup of coffee and just like looking out into the waves and reflecting? How many of you like reflection? So like I said, you're all already doing everything that I'm gonna present to you. Basically, you know it deeply. It's part of your personal and professional practice. And so what I am going to say is what we at Innovate sort of propose is that there a framework where each of these four things can be spaces that you provide for your communities. So in very simple ways, our model is, how am I providing spaces for parents to listen to one another's story and for me to listen to parents and their stories? How am I providing spaces for parents to learn from each other and learn about the world together, right? Whether it be a technology session, a session with a, I don't know, professor from Cal State Long Beach on the history of movement building, a session with some English classes. How am I providing spaces for parents to learn together? And then how am I providing spaces for parents to take action together, whether it be volunteering or deciding that they want to get really excited about CalSAC's Challenge Day in March and like setting like some turnout goals, like a group of 15 parents that says, or 5 parents that says, in March, we are going to work with staff at the organization to get out 50 parents to the lobby day, to the challenge day for after school providers. So how am I providing spaces to listen together, for my parents to learn together, to take action together, and to reflect together? And that creates sort of a cycle and an energy sort of loop that will pay off for both you as an organization, because you'll be able to connect with parents that you're providing those spaces for from a values and like self-interest place. Like, where do your values, where do your goals align with the stuff that gets uplifted in those 4 practices: learning, listening, learning, acting, reflecting. And it will be beneficial for them, right? Because they will grow in their leadership, they will grow in their confidence, they will grow in their knowledge through that journey. So before we continue, let's do a little activity before I show you an example of the power of this cycle. And if you have a piece of paper, or if you can just imagine in your head so why do we do this? Why do we propose these 4 sort of steps, these 4 spaces that you are creating and can create with your parent community? It's because there's a gap between the world as it is and the world as it should be. So think about your organization or just a community center in your community, maybe your organization. What are the struggles that you face? Maybe it's staffing, maybe it's resources, maybe it's economic injustice in your parents. Like, what are the struggles that your community faces? Maybe it's a traffic, the lack of a traffic light, and there's been a lot of accidents down the street. What are the struggles in your community? Imagine sort of like when you think of what is saddest in your community, in your organization's ecosystem, what breaks your heart the most? So maybe think about it for a second and then put it in the chat. Or if you don't want to put it in the chat, once you've thought about it, just maybe put a heart up or a sad face, or lack of time, people always working. What are the struggles in your community? What about the world as it currently is? Language barriers, about making, and so like economic issues. What about for your organization? What are the struggles? If you could get, Governor Newsom, President Biden, whoever, the powers that be, to focus on any one issue for your organization, what would it be? What are the struggles in your community? Trauma, so mental health issues, transportation, mental health. Yes. It's a lot. What about if you could imagine? So now let's think about the opposite, and then we'll move quickly here. Let's imagine for a second, like John Lennon's song, Imagine, if the world as it should be existed right now. Like, let's just say you had a magic wand and everything was good. What would that look like for you? If like everything was ideal in your organization's ecosystem. So physical, mental, and spiritual wellness. Anything else? Kids feeling safe. Time to enjoy life. Balance. Unlimited budget and staffing and resources. Yeah. Exactly. This is beautiful stuff. So why do we develop leaders? Why do we propose that as a part of parent engagement? Because this I always tell leaders is like, one organization, one group of staff can push against obstacles, can push against the wall. But when folk join together, when there's more community to push with you, you can push harder. And I'm not sort of naive and going to say that like in this lifetime we're going to get to the world as it should be, to the ideal world, but with a organized group of leaders, you can move in that direction with more intention, right? So if we go to the next slide, I want to show you sort of the power of these leaders in Southeast. Many of these leaders had never spoken in public, and then they accomplished this, right? And it took a lot of relationship building. In 2018, when I started working with these leaders, I had 400 one-to-ones before I even started a parent leader team in this community. And so just to give you a sense of what it takes to get sort of a focus on leadership going, but really, like I said, you can use elements of this framework to different degrees depending on your capacity, right? And so I will quickly show you this video, and then we'll move on from there.
Significa este evento, este momento para usted y para la comunidad?
¿Qué significa? Todo, yo creo.
Nuestros niños están en una crisis académica. LUSD tiene los recursos para ayudarnos y necesitan hacer algo sobre esto.
Hi, my name is Eddie Martinez. I'm Vice Mayor of Huntington Park. I'm here to support this initiative. It's so important for our community as we recover from the pandemic to provide the tools for our families to help educate our youth, help make sure they have good grades in schools, and graduate from high school and hopefully go to college.
Well, I think it's the beginning of hopefully more funding that the school district would match this. Other communities would participate here, like Bell, Maywood, and all, because they also are in similar situation. I think this is very important that some of the nonprofits get together, some of the cities are getting together, and this is just the beginning of good things to come.
La educación para mí es muy importante, no solo para mis hijos o para mi descendencia, sino para todos los niños del mundo. Y es por lo que lucho y siempre, mire cómo ando con el bordón, yo hasta el último momento de mi vida siempre voy a luchar porque tengan oportunidad todos los niños.
So I want to, and you're wondering probably like, why does he have like peaches and peach cobbler up on the board? I don't know. I want to really, so this wasn't a huge group of leaders. It was like probably 20 to 30 core leaders that worked on this initiative over the course of a year or so with Eddie from Southeast Community Foundation and others, and built the sort of political energy to get their mayors to say yes to this investment. And what I really want to, the reason for these peaches and this peach cobbler, and then I have a question, and I'd love to hear just one voice from the audience. So peaches are great, right? Like peaches are sort of leaders, I mean, your parents are sort of the peaches of your work. They one-on-one parent engagement is incredible. It's sort of like, getting parents to be excited and to like individually volunteer, to sort of take steps individually to support your work. That is like sort of what these peaches are, and like that is incredible. But if what this framework proposes sort of in its full implementation is creating parent teams, sort of what Anderson was saying, that work together to add flavor, right? To bring feedback, to discern with your organization, how do we want to pressure our local officials and others to act on our behalf, creating sort of teams of leaders, even if those teams aren't humongous. They could be 5 leaders in your organization, in your parent community. It could be 10, it could be 20, sort of having an eye for leadership development, and which of the peaches will become peach cobbler, or which, not all of your community will be ready for leadership and will be ready to share their voice. Some of them, like, will have multiple jobs. Not all of them will be ready right away, is really what I should say. And so it's okay to do both things at the same time, especially if you have the resources, and what I'm really trying to make the case for is that even 5 organized parents, even 10 organized parents can push with you for change. Any reactions? One reaction from the audience, I'd love to just hear from someone. What did you see in the video, and how, what can that, how did you see this group sort of shift the world from the real to the ideal? And how do you think that a team of parents that's organizing together with you could help you in your work? Is there one person that would like to share? You can just go ahead and take yourself off mic.
I see a note in the chat from Jessica Carlos. I don't know, Jessica, if you'd like to jump in and share a bit more.
Yeah, Jessica, we'd love to hear your voice.
Hello. Are you speaking to the comment that I just put in?
Yes, I
Yes.
think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's clear from this video that I feel like it's easier to rally parents around a shared mission, vision, and so when the parents were able to identify that their community needed tutors, that was very clear. Well, then we're going to get tutoring funding. Oh, that's perfect. And when you create positions for people to say, hey, okay, so we need a communications leader, we need a marketing leader, we need someone to find the grants, we need someone, then parents can assess their own strengths and their own skill sets to say, oh, communications, I'm great at that. I connect with people, I connect with the community, I'll jump into that role. Researching grants, well, I'm not a communicator, but I love to research things. And so parents can then assess their own skill sets and figure out where they fit in. I think one of the challenges that after school organizations, just my experience being in after schools, is that, we want parents to be engaged, but aren't painting a clear picture for parents how to be engaged. So if, and I think when you put that in a one sheet, and this is just my idea, if you put in a one sheet, like, hey, we want to raise funds so we can all do a fall harvest activity, or we'll have a fall harvest carnival, we're looking for parents to fill these spaces, maybe that can incentivize parents, that we're trying to create a community and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think what I saw here was just a very clear mission and vision, and that's why they were so successful.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And if we go to the next slide, I'll start presenting on each of the pieces of this framework. And so true. So really, it's about creating community, and it's about getting people organized, right? And getting people organized means getting people to a clear place about their capacity to create change in the world, and getting people focused on a clear goal that aligns with their values and their interests, and hopefully with your values and your interests as organizations as well. And so it is like a really easy way to motivate people around this is it's like, find a problem that's like upon you as an organization. Maybe it's like, we need more members. Maybe it's we need more money, and say like, we need our community's help, right? Like engage parents that are already having great experiences. We need your help, and then sort of let them lead the way in terms of helping you. So just really quick, because these 4 elements. So, and I can, I'll put my email and my name, and us at Innovate are willing to meet with you for one-to-ones to sort of think through how to create a structure for this. But really, it's about thinking of what I love about these 4 elements is that you can think about, okay, how much of my staff's time is focused on each of these 4 elements and creating spaces for parents, for leaders, and or do I assign one staff person to be in charge of this and maybe utilize this framework as a tool. So the first phase of our framework is spaces for listening together, which I already went into. Some examples of practices in this could be doing one-to-one. So maybe like making sure your staff has formal 30-minute sort of sit-down convos where they just hear stories from parents and community members, and think about like what is the heartbreak and what are the dreams in this community. And then so there's also focus groups or house meetings, as we call them. And then there's parent leader teams, which are take a little bit more investment, but it's like regularly scheduled parent committee meetings. So maybe it's just, a monthly meeting where parents are invited and there's like, people know, as I say in Spanish, el mismo canal y el mismo lugar, the same channel, the same place, once a month. This organization will have at this place donuts and like a parent leadership session, right? Like that sort of consistency helps a lot. So that's the first phase of our framework. And then the second phase is spaces to learn together. They also form leaders. So yeah, coffee with the principal, spaces to learn together are also form leaders. So this is really part of sort of the philosophical underpinning of our framework and of our work is that everyone, no matter what their level of education, has the capacity to learn at a very high level with the right supports and right structures. So how do you create spaces for learning together, info sessions, webinars, places where parents can develop their own questions, and where you coach them through sort of creating an objective for a learning session and then reaching that objective as a group. So that's the second phase. The third phase is spaces to act together. So this is, once you have a group of parents that loves being with one another, loves sort of the harvest festivals, which I love too, loves sort of like all that sort of, community aspect that loves being together. Once you have that, once they love learning together, then it's like really challenging them, inviting them to use their energy as a community to act upon the world. So whether it be volunteering for you, whether it be mobilizing for some sort of campaign, whether it be, and this is sort of like, getting excited about March, CalSAC Lobby Day, or like maybe there's an important meeting at City Hall where like, they're gonna vote on whether to give you a contract for like a particular thing, and having parents sort of act and show up at that as leaders. So this is the third phase, creating spaces, being intentional about spaces to act together. And then lastly, parents will not start seeing themselves as leaders until, like all of us, they're given the space to think about their journey. So, if I'm a parent that helped get, for example, Maria to come do a webinar on technology or on mental health, that can be a formative experience and a way of, yes, of course, these slides will be shared. That can be a formative experience and a way for that parent to start seeing themselves differently and as leaders, but only if they're given the spaces to do that, the reflective spaces. And so whether it be surveys or reflection groups, etc. So because the most important part of these whole 2 hours is you all taking the time to reflect on your reality, on your context, and how you want to utilize these 4 elements of the framework to advance your parent engagement work. So just to finish off, and I have a lot of tips about how you can operationalize all of this. We can connect about that if you'd like. But just to finish off, really, there's not a lot of places where a lot of organizations that have access to a lot of community. You are in a special place as out of school providers. A lot of people drop off their kids. You have lists and lists of parents that engage with you. And so you have the potential to increase social capital, the potential to increase community in our country. And we're excited for you, for the efforts that you've been doing, and we're excited for you to use the tool that we presented today to grow your capacity and your power around parent engagement as well. So I now will pass on the word to my colleague Joanna, who will explain a worksheet for you to really reflect on these 4 elements that we presented. Thank you all so much. Take it away, Joe.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Joanna French, and I'm the Co-Associate Director of Research and Policy at Innovate. Let's give one more, just put a heart in the chat if you learned something from Carlos's presentation. Everyone, let's lift up these hearts for Carlos. Thank you so much, Carlos, for sharing the organizing training, and thanks again to all of our amazing panelists for everything you shared, all of the wisdom today. So now that we've heard some examples of what intentional parent engagement can look like from our panelists and from Carlos, what the organizing model can look like, we'd love to spend some time working in small groups to discuss and workshop how these principles can be applied to your work. So we really want to walk away today with some clear takeaways for each person for what you can do from here to intentionally think about applying some of these principles to your work. We know that one of the biggest challenges of attending a webinar like this is that we learn a lot, but then are uncertain at times how to take those learnings and apply these ideas and principles to our work in ways that are easy to implement and not overburdensome to us or to our teams. So some of the folks in this room have been doing high quality parent engagement for a long, oh, sorry about that. Can you hear me okay? Thumbs up? All right, thank you so much. So this is a space where you can share some of your learnings and hopefully help other folks who are newer to the work. If you've been doing it for a long time and are really experienced with parent engagement, we know a lot of you here have been doing this work for decades, and we'd love it if you could, in our small groups, share what you've learned and help other folks who are newer to the work. For those of you who are brand new to parent engagement or unsure how to apply these principles, don't worry at all. We're going to have facilitators walk through a worksheet with you to look at the organizing model and together think about some ways you can apply this. So in a moment, you'll see the breakout room notification pop up on your screen. And once it does, click the join breakout room. And once you're in your next room, one of our facilitators will walk you through what comes next. We'll each have about 20 minutes to ask questions first about what you learned, share reactions, and then walk through this worksheet together to apply the principles and come up with an actionable plan for what we're going to do from here. And then we'll come back at about 11:45, and hear from a couple of groups as they share out their learnings. So let's go ahead and open up the breakout rooms, please. All right, so everyone go ahead and start clicking into your breakout rooms, and our facilitators will take it from there.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you all. Yeah, thanks for sharing your screen, Sly. So this is our parent engagement worksheet that Joanna quickly walked through. So at the top is the Innovate organizing model that Carlos briefly touched on. And then if you scroll down, there's some questions around each of the phases of the organizing model. As Joe mentioned, we created this worksheet so that you can take it with you, something that you could take away with you from this presentation today. So if you, did you all get the link to the worksheet? Let me make sure. Yes, okay. Yeah, so feel free to make a copy of this worksheet so that you have your own. And what we'll do now, well, first, were there any questions that anybody had coming off of that great presentation from Carlos, or any lingering questions from the panel? We'll take some time for questions. And then what I'm hoping we can do is have someone volunteer and we could walk through the worksheet together. But first, any questions?
Well, you did a good job.
Thanks, Eddie.
Hi. Hi, Jenny.
Hey. Okay, no questions, no questions. Okay, anybody want to volunteer? And what we'll do is just walk through. We won't walk through all of the questions. There's a lot in there. We won't have time, but we'll choose one from each section, and I'll ask the question to you, and we can brainstorm together how you might answer these questions. And so we'll model for the rest of the group how to fill out this worksheet. Anybody want to volunteer?
Let's see. Okay. I mean, I'll volunteer. What are you trying to get here?
Thanks, Eddie. Yeah, so I can read the question to you. So this is a worksheet. This is for around parent engagement, around strategy, listening, and learning and reflection. So yeah, like, well, let's jump in. I'll start off with a question and then I can type in your response in here. Actually, let me make a slide. Is this a copy? Just want to make sure this is a copy.
Yes, this is a copy that I made specifically for this breakout group.
Okay,
So feel free to edit.
Could you take notes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, great. So the first question, Eddie, is what is your long-term vision for your organization around improving parent engagement? What would you like to see happen?
Well, for us, it's very important administering the trust. I could tell you firsthand, the presentation or the video you guys saw, I was there. I was one of the speakers. I was on stage, but it's very important to establish trust for our group, our foundation. We're the only ones that we're doing high dosage tutoring. So to see it clearly defined now, as we've gone through the pandemic, you're now looking at a great need, right? So there's a big need out there that needs to be fulfilled. And we're a part of the LA Unified School District, but we also have about 8 other school districts that touch the Southeast Los Angeles region. But the trust is very important that needs to be established with parents, because a lot of parents, I actually spend some time, and so do my program coordinators and managers, explaining to parents that what we do in our offering to them in terms of the high dosage tutoring is free. That's hard to convey and get. I mean, it's as easy as it sounds. I'm telling them it's completely free. They don't trust that. And it's hard to get around that, because at the end of the tutoring, they actually believe I'm going to invoice them. And so it's hard. It's hard for a parent to say, wow, okay, once they get past maybe a week or 2 of the tutoring, then they say, okay, this actually is working and I believe in it. And so trust is very important. I think that's the long-term version, is how to get around that, and improving the parent engagement from that point forward is getting parents to trust. But we've had, some amazing, innovative parents that have fought in the Southeast Los Angeles region and have gotten us to this point. Several years back, I tried it. We had a very, for lack of a better word, toxic region of elected officials that were self-serving, and they literally were infighting. They were fighting amongst themselves, literally and physically. They were literally just amongst themselves. So they couldn't get anything done, and they never really put the community first. But you have a new round of individuals a few years later, and they're eager to do things and actually get invested in the community. And that's what you saw in the video. You saw a new vice mayor for Huntington Park and the mayor of Southgate, who were really looking forward to moving forward with making tutoring an investment.
Thank you. Looks like we may have lost Jenny. Not seeing her. So why don't we, in the interest of time, move over to the second phase, which is the learning phase. So there's a couple of different questions there. What assets or resources do you already have that you can tap into? Who is the decision maker within your org about any changes to parent engagement? What additional resources would you need in order to improve parent engagement? How could you anticipate and solve for those barriers in advance? And then what barriers do you anticipate to shifting the way you do parent engagement at your organization? So again, we're only honing in on one of these questions because we don't have time for it. Usually there's like a 2-hour process, but we have 20 minutes. Is there any of these that resonates with the group that we want to answer?
I would say the additional resources.
Mhm.
And if somebody else can chime in, I just don't want to be the only one talking, but
Yeah.
I can tell you from our end, we do have workshops. We call them youth empowerment, and I emphasize the YOU in youth, so that it integrates the student. So we have the youth empowerment workshop series for our youth, and then we have a parent engagement. And the parent engagement workshops are supposed to combine the students. So there's a set of workshops that are designated for the students and the youth, and then there's a set of workshops that we integrate the parents in. And so those are everything from preparing your child not only to go through the high school experience, but preparing them for college if they're first generation student to go, learning A through G requirements and getting that child prepared. So the workshops are important, as far as the organizing that comes with trying to get them, to the next level. But workshops are very important, and if you can get a group of parents, rally around, maybe even businesses, like even banks. Have you ever seen banks? They like to reach out a lot and say, hey, we'll provide financial literacy. If you actually bring them to the table and ask them what it is that you want, they will go away from what they're being presented through corporate. They'll actually come back and then keep it simple and say, okay, show me how to just balance a checkbook. And so they'll begin to shift and work with you with these workshops. That's just one example, but
yeah, that's an excellent point. I can vouch for that. I used to work for College Track in Boyle Heights years ago. And at the time, we got a bunch of volunteers from Chase Bank to come in and do our financial literacy classes for our kids. And it was great because they had instant credibility. They were also very sensitive to the fact that we didn't want to give the impression that Chase was going to come in and then everyone has to open a Chase account now because we're here. We set those boundaries with them, and they were very respectful of that. So that's a great suggestion.
Exactly.
All right, let's move into the next phase, the acting phase. Here are the subtopics for this. Who within your org is currently responsible for day-to-day parent engagement? Who would be best positioned to lead this work? The next one, simplicity is key. What are the simplest, easiest to implement things your org can do to improve parent engagement? Next, what are the highest impact things your org could do to improve parent engagement? And then lastly, what will be your immediate next step following this webinar? And we can hear from other people too. It's okay if there's answers from different orgs in each question. We're not gonna grade these or anything. So who else would like to chime in? Which bullet point here resonates for you?
I think the simplicity one is one that resonates with me because I think the easiest thing that you could do to improve parent engagement is just be there. And what the panelists shared earlier is just being available to those parents, being empathetic, understanding that people are coming from different backgrounds. And so once the parents see that you're willing to invest in them and put in the effort, I feel like they're more inclined to have the resources and the empowerment and the confidence to then invest back into us and into their children's education.
Thank you. I think that was Sarah, right? Thank you, Sarah. Anybody else want to chime in? Curious to hear from any of you, what will be your immediate next steps following this webinar? Aside from going to grab a bite. So it'll be lunchtime.
I can chime in real quick. This is Eddie again.
Thank you, Eddie.
Foundation. We're already implementing some of these workshops. just because of the timing, you know, we're starting a new school year. So implementing our workshops is very important, but we also do other things. We have a very active board of directors, and one of our board members, who is a partner at a law firm, came to us and wanted to do like a mentorship program where she got some of their lawyers involved in helping the students in our area who are having difficulties writing maybe essays to try to get into colleges, or just for whatever reason they were willing to partner these mentors with kids throughout the year so that they can improve their writing skills. And so that's one of the ways that we're engaging parents. So it's always difficult to try to find out where the need is, but by engaging the parents, that's how you find a way to see where the need is. So that's what we're doing. Those are kind of like the next steps of what we're doing in terms of the engagement. But we do it throughout the year. We do it in different formats. And not too long ago, we had a like an entertainment, tech, communications forum where we invited 93.5, and the guys were really nice enough. They actually, at the time we were holding our forum, they actually were having their event or their radio time, and so they pre-recorded it. They all pre-recorded it and came out. The entire group came out, so they had you know, pre-recorded and then just came out to their event and dedicated their time to showing kids how to funnel their way into that type of industry.
Yeah,
which I thought was really neat. But we had a lot of parents there, and so, you know, and it's any chance you get to invite parents to become engaged, that's it's always a win.
thanks, Eddie. I'm looking at the chat from Celeste. I have a hard time with parents wanting to be involved. I'm in after school program, and this year a lot of parents treat my site like a daycare, and they're not really interested in being that involved. Next up would be teaching parents who have a hard time with our Class Dojo app. Yeah, this is a really big thing. You know, parents who sometimes think that it's babysitting. What makes it more challenging sometimes is when some of those feelings are echoed by legislative leaders. We at CalSAC do our annual challenge, which is an event where we train parents, youth, and educators. And then we go to Sacramento, we meet with our state assembly members and state senators, and we advocate for more after school program funding. Last year when we did that, there was a hearing that was broadcast live on Zoom, and it was about funding for after school programs. We had the McCarty bill and some of those bills that were up for a vote. And one of the assembly members, who's actually the head of the education committee, basically said what you just evoked, Celeste, that after school programs are glorified babysitting. Here's what made that more disturbing for me. This elected leader who sits on the education committee is a former teacher. So you would think there was more buy-in or maybe a different approach taken, but sometimes people that are on the education committee, they don't always see eye to eye with the priorities that we have. So it's we don't have time to go into the weeds right now, but it is important to help educate parents and to also share talking points that can speak to those misconceptions about after school programs basically being babysitting. Because if they hear from an elected leader, it's validating those misconceptions. So happy to follow up with you later with like some talking points and resources to try to like help shift that mindset, because it is a really important you know, point. If parents think this is babysitting, then they're not going to be as invested in maybe funding or other tools and strategies to help strengthen those after school programs. We have about 2 or 3 minutes left. The last section on reflection. How will you know you've been successful? In what ways will you engage parents or other stakeholders to reflect? How will you report out what you learn? And how will you repeat this process over time to engage more parents? Which one do we want to answer in the last few minutes that we have? Maybe somebody who hasn't spoken or hasn't shared. Will, Tanya, haven't heard from you. Anything you want to add? Any of these resonating with you? I see Tanya, you unmuted yourself. Did you want to chime in? And it's okay if you don't. I know there's a lot of questions here that are, for me, I personally find them very thought-provoking, very insightful. So it's good to sometimes take it all in and then reflect on how this can be taken back to our programs and used as part of this whole process that Carlos walked us through. Oh, your mic's not working. No worries. You can type it in the chat if you want. If not, that's okay. Again, this is just an exercise, just to walk you through it. So not a big deal if we don't get all these sections answered. I think we're going to go back to the main session in the next minute or so when the breakout rooms start to close. Does anybody want to report back to the group? Just a brief overview of some of these points that we discussed. Or any other questions that you have about this document? And again, we'll be sharing this with you. If you can make a copy right now, but we'll also be sharing this template with you when we send a follow-up email with the slides from today's presentation, as well as I'm blanking. The panelist bios and some of the other questions that came up during the panel. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And looks like we're heading back shortly. You're welcome. Happy to facilitate. And thank you again for joining us today. I hope this has been informative and helpful. We were very excited to see all of you participate in the turnout. We had about 86 people registered today. And historically, I always see like 50% drop off. It's always like 50% of people who register end up showing up. And today we had 84 people on the panel. So we had almost 100% turnout. So thank you for just being committed to parent engagement and for showing up today and being open to hearing new things and best practices and being part of what makes, I think, parent involvement successful and necessary. I think we're going back at 11:50, so we have another 2 minutes in case anybody needs a quick break or needs to stretch their legs.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you all so much thank you first to our facilitators. Shout out to our facilitators for walking us through that. Could we have one or two small groups share out what you walked through? Can we get one or two volunteers here? And feel free to jump in, or facilitators, feel free to invite someone from your group to jump in. Carlos, go for it.
I love my group, and Jessica, I don't know if you would want to share, but I thought yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. What am I answering the first question, or I forget what we're sharing? Just what we talked about in our group?
Yeah, what we talked about, and then any sort of reflections. I loved your answer around the takeaway at the end. So
oh, sure.
Anything that's on your heart and mind.
Yeah. So my takeaway was the framework itself. I felt like it was super valuable because it allowed me to identify the gaps within my organization and just ways that I can create a system around, creating spaces for parents to learn from each other. I mean, I definitely had the reflection part. I had the other parts down, but I was like, oh, wow, I don't have a space for that. So, and I'm a very systems, and processes kind of person. So I feel like this was gold. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing out. Really appreciate you. And can I go ahead and invite Maren? Would you be willing to share out as well?
Yeah, thank you. I really just also loved the worksheet. And we do something similar, but not as thorough. Like it really makes you dig on like getting to, I guess, getting to your goal, right? Despite our barriers, it's like, how do we get there? How do we get to our goal? So I really had a fun time doing it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Maren. All right, wonderful. So we are going to go ahead and pass it. I'll pass it back to Jen, but thanks again to all of our facilitators and everyone for participating in the small groups.
Hey, we've had such a fun morning with you guys. We hope that you start incorporating all of these new ways of parent engagement and hope you're starting to feel really fired up about how to switch, change, and rotate things that are happening within your own sites, at your own programs, and within your own communities. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and switch it over or pass it over to Jenny, who's going to be speaking to you guys about some of our next steps and what you can expect moving forward. So Jenny.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, and it's been so great getting to know you all in the small groups as well. Thank you all for such a great engagement and great discussion. So just a few next steps. Be sure to follow us on social media. We'll drop that in the chat and share out what you learned today. We know that sharing learnings with others helps build communities. So be sure to let others know how our tools for engagement training inspired you to think differently about parent engagement. And don't forget to tag us and use the hashtags #engaging for change and #CalSAC×innovate. The other next step is we'd love for you to work with us to advocate for important after school and expanded learning issues at the state level. Last year, 200 after school providers, parents, and community members joined CalSAC at their 18th annual Challenge Day, where we met with 87 legislators from the California State Senate and Assembly. CalSAC will be hosting the After School and Summer Challenge Lobby Day again this year, and you are all the first to hear this. Save the date for Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. We'll send out more information as we get closer to the date, and we'll also be sending out a survey after this webinar, so you can let us know if you're interested in participating and getting more involved with these advocacy efforts. Also, encourage you all to fill out that survey once you get it to let us know how we can improve these webinars moving forward. Thank you all so much. We'll give you back 5 minutes of your day. Appreciate you all. Thank you.